Hi, my name's Bill Sherman and I'm going to talk you through some of the effects we made for Jernanger. As you'll see from this sequence, one of the challenges Paul gave us was to recreate the fishing village in northern Norway. The costs of shooting at location were prohibitive and the production decided to use still photos tracked onto a horizon shot in Stavanger. Here you can see how these elements were added as layers. As with all the effect shots in Jernanger, this sequence was colour corrected at the end to match the rest of the film. We were also asked to solve the shot where Ivan meets the fish. This was impossible to do for real for obvious reasons. In Stavanger Harbour and in an aquarium, the three separate shots were captured and we combined them to create the illusion of Ivan coming face to face with the fish. Again, you will see how colour correction helps to blend these three elements together. By far the largest challenge we faced in creating the effects for Jernanger was the collision sequence.
Ja, men jeg har fått blackout, sier jeg! Vi gjør så godt vi kan.
Before any film was shot, we went through the process of creating an animatic, or an animated storyboard. This gave us a starting point for our discussions with the director Paul and director of photography Jakob. As you can see, the animatic is roughly put together with 3D stand-in elements and stills from the locations that were to be used in the film. By making this rough animated version of the sequence, we could begin to see the problems we might have during the shoot. At this stage, the idea was to shoot the cruise ship and Jernanger where possible at the same time. We looked at the collision as a kind of dance between the two ships and tried to get the choreography in place. The script at this stage called for a head-on near collision. Many of the camera angles in the animatic were behind and to the right of the actors. You may have noticed how this changed in the final sequence, as the cruise ship appeared on the starboard side of Jernanger, placing the camera to the left and alongside the actors. Effect shots are generally made over several days, shooting separate elements, and so the animatic gave the film crew a chance to understand Paul's vision for the sequence and the pace of the action. We knew early on that in the story foggy weather was partly to blame for the near collision, so we made the choice to put white outside the windows of the wheelhouse. Here is an early test. Jakob also wanted to shoot the whole sequence handheld, so he used a working method to recreate the three-dimensional movement of the camera. This is called 3D tracking, and using enough points, we were able to deal with adding picture elements that track together. Working with Paul and Jakob, we were looking for a set of building blocks to solve all of the challenges in the sequence. The foggy weather was obviously impossible to predict or create physically, so again we went through a test process of making 3D fog and combining that with live action plates. This gave us complete control over the continuity of the fog, something that would have been impossible if we shot the sequence over one or even several days, as the weather changes very fast. For practical reasons, the production decided that the cruise ship should be made using 3D animation. Many high-resolution photos were taken of different ships and combined into a large texture map for our cruiser. After being painted up, these textures were mapped onto a 3D model created for the film. Now all the building blocks were in place. During the shot called Tilt Up, you can see how the various 3D elements were added to create the final shot. All of these elements were carefully tracked into the original film footage. This sequence was particularly difficult to track because the camera boat was being bounced around immediately behind Jernanger. By moving our virtual camera further away from the effect, you'll be able to see how the 3D tracking process was applied to our FX plates in order to recreate the original camera movement in 3 dimensions. This final sequence shows how we were able to animate what were effectively still frames to create the illusion of the 2 ships moving past each other. Creating the effects for Jernanger was a great challenge, and I hope you've enjoyed looking a bit behind the scenes.